Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Commercial Real Estate Secrets, and I'm your host, Austin Hare, and our guest is Amol Nirgudkar. He's the CEO and founder of Patient Prism. Now, Patient Prism is an AI technology for dental practices that helps them book more calls and turn them into scheduled appointments. And so, without further ado, Amol, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and thanks for taking the time today.
Austin, it's such a pleasure to chat with you. We just got introduced a few weeks ago, but I've had the most amazing conversations with you over the last few weeks. So thank you for having me, and I'm excited to share my story.
Yeah, no, it's been great. It's been great. So, yeah, let's start out. Obviously, the name is a Indian name, and so we were talking earlier. You were actually born in India, right? And so, what was that like? What was life like? And how long was it before you migrated over to the U.S.?
I came here right in high school when I was 15 years old, after my 10th grade, and I moved here because my parents moved here, and my mom got a job, and it was a rough 2 years, kind of getting acclimated to the culture, and although I spoke English as one of the languages, it was tough to kind of getting adjusted to the culture, and I was a funny guy in India, but I was not a funny guy here. And humor, as you know, right? Humor is not transferable across nations. Uh,
Yeah.
so that was the one challenge, getting acclimated. Understanding accent was another thing, but just understanding, the way of life here was different than the way of life there. And in teenage, when you move as a teenager, it's even tougher. It's not, teenage is enough toughness going on during the teenage years, but when you move countries, it definitely is a shock.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. So, I mean, you were born in India, and then you pretty much grew up there. I mean, 10th grade, like that, you're pretty developed at that time. So, what did your parents do over there? Like, what made them inclined to migrate from one country to another?
It was a random fluke. My mom got an offer. She was an occupational therapist, and she got an offer from a Florida hospital saying, "Hey, would you like to come to the United States to work?" And apparently, those guys were in shortage at the time here, and she was getting all these job offers out of the blue from recruiters in Florida. And my dad was owned a business there. He had a factory that they worked on auto parts and stuff. He was a lawyer by trade, but they was like, "Hey, why don't we try this for a couple of years?" And there we go. The whole family started. Me and my sister and my parents decided to just they got that phone call in January, and then my parents arrived here in April of '92, and then we arrived, my sister and I, in August of 1992.
Wow, wow. And so, like, in India, I've never been. I've just heard things. I believe they use the caste system, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was the caste system is thankfully becoming a decent sized relic, especially in
Yeah.
in cities, right? It's no longer relevant. It's still alive and well in the rural parts of India, but the caste system is still there, very much so. Uh, does it really interfere with people's lives today? Not as much as it did in the early part in the last several hundred years. But no, it's still very much a part of the fabric of the society.
Mm.
Uh, it doesn't interfere with people's lives anymore. Obviously, political alignment is on that caste system quite a bit, and the vote bank politics applies when you're trying to, it's in politics, as you know. When you divide people, it's easier to win votes, right?
Mm.
You don't get any credit for uniting people. That's why the
Right.
political systems across the world are divided. We have more in common with Republicans and Democrats than anybody else in the world, but we're divided because politicians love to divide people, and it's the best and the most efficient way to rule a country is to
Mm.
divide.
Yeah, and so I know very little about India, but I just there's like it seems like the movies they always portray the kind of the haves and the have-nots. You know what I mean? It's like the people who can do well, do really well, but then there's a large group of uh, people that are in poverty. Is that accurate, and is that changing at all?
Oh, it's changing quite a bit. Yeah, it is accurate. Absolutely accurate. India is the fourth largest economy in the world today, after the United States, China, Germany, and the next is India.
Wow.
So the population is pretty large, right? The population is 1.4 billion almost. So if you look at that, there's way too many people compressed in a country that it's one third of our size.
Wow.
But since 1994, a lot of I mean, India went through socialism until like the early 90s, and then they kind of adopted capitalism, and things have done well. I mean, they've
That's
done
great.
really well. There's a big middle class, which is the size of the United States, which
Wow.
is consuming everything at a crazy pace.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And so sounds like things are turning up are looking up. Sounds like capitalism has definitely helped contribute to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely, it
Yeah.
is.
That's great.
It's been a good journey for those guys.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for sharing. I don't want to detract too much from your story, but I find
No,
it
no.
fascinating, and you had a long time living there, so that's cool. So, all right. So now, you're in the United States. You're as a high schooler. So what kind of happens? Like, I mean, right now you've got an AI company. Were you tech savvy? Were you tech inclined in high school? Like
Not
what
at
was,
all.
did you do anything that was entrepreneurial, or where did you see your life going at the time?
No, I went to school. I majored in accounting and finance. I have a master's degree in accounting, became a CPA, and wanted to become a CPA. Joined PricewaterhouseCoopers, eventually started my own firm. But I was good at accounting. I was really good at accounting, and I ran a CPA firm until 2 years ago, where I
Wow.
retired from, and advised a lot of people in the healthcare and the dental world as a CPA and as a business consultant, as a tax advisor. So really, I had no intention of going into technology in any way, shape, or form. Didn't
Hmm.
have a background or any of that stuff. I didn't never took a programming class in my life, so I have no idea what it is like to be a technology guy. Um, but Patient Prism was just an accident. Just we tried to solve a problem, and we solved it well, and there it was. We had a company. It was
And
not meant to, like, let me start a tech company so I can sell it for a lot of money to Henry Schein one day. That was not the point, or whoever it might be. The point was, hey, there is a problem that we see. I think we can solve it using technology, and it was just like any other business. Is you hire the right people, you start marketing and you start sales, and you hope that your product works, and our product worked, and we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's a fascinating transition, because I understand, when you've been an accountant, wanted to be a CPA, you go to school for that, you started your own business with that. But how did that lead into Patient Prism? Because, or you said you worked with dental practices and DSOs and stuff like that. So was that your primary, avatar? Was that your primary audience or audience?
I mean, and not primary audience, but I mean, I initially started the journey with starting a marketing company that was focused on dentists. I figured I had a lot of dentist friends, and I had a lot of clients who are dentists. So why not start a marketing company that can drive new patient leads into a dental office? And that was something that I just wanted to do, because I figured I was really good at attracting clients into my own CPA firm. I'd be great at attracting clients for somebody else. And long before, and then we started a digital marketing agency for dental practices, and we did really well in the process. And during that, I realized that, man, no matter how good you are in driving leads into the funnel or into the dental office, and no matter how good you are at driving phone calls into the dental office, um, if those people at the front are not good at answering that call as a salesperson and not an order taker, then you're going to miss the boat. And then we saw consistently that these dental offices were missing 40 to 50% of calls. They're not booking them, and booking them not because of any, it's just because they couldn't communicate. They couldn't have a sales conversation, which is,
Hmm.
hey, you called the right place. We're affordable. I mean, it doesn't really and kind of convey that sense of trust to the patient, which a lot of people don't want to call dentists. None of us like to call dentists, right? Because it's the last thing on our mind is, oh, let me call my dentist. We
Right.
don't want that. We do it because we have to, and
Yeah.
52% of the country has not even seen a dentist. So
What
that
percentage was that?
52%,
Has never seen a dentist?
has never seen a dentist. So
That's
we've got
crazy.
a huge problem in dentistry, right? Obviously it's a problem and opportunity both.
Yeah.
And now that dentistry was evolving into this B2C direct to consumer model, it was imperative that the monies that were spent to drive leads into the office was coming to fruition by us converting that patient or a prospective caller into a scheduled appointment, and otherwise you're wasting all the money. So that's where the origin of Patient Prism was. I'm like, could we build a system that leverages AI? The question we asked was, could we teach Alexa dentistry? That was the question we asked. And over a period of several years, got we got innovative, and we knew we were innovative when the United States Patent Office issued us patents. I'm like, oh
Mhm.
well, looks like we're innovative. We said, you know what, we want to really figure out a way to leverage AI to understand when conversations fail, and when conversations fail, what happens when the patient loses interest in book and moving forward. And we wanted to, and if you knew something went wrong quickly and you had an opportunity to fix it, um, we would all do that. If you could redo a conversation, if you sometimes you feel you could redo a day, like the Groundhog Day, right? If you could redo something, you could fix it. So we think we our hypothesis was, if we understood where we messed up and we got some training around it very quickly, we could literally get those patients back on the second try. And that's where we started. And today, within 15 minutes of a patient not scheduling an appointment, uh, they get an alert saying that, hey, this is what happened in the call. This is what you should have said.
When you
This
say
is
when you say they, is that a call center or is that the owner of the
it,
practice or
it
what?
could be a call center, it could be a dental practice, and not every DSO and they have a call center. Sometimes the calls are answered at the office level. Sometimes they're answered at the call center level, and we work with both types. Uh, our job is to mainly make sure that every patient who calls, every new patient who calls the office or the call center gets appointed. You know, that's the most important step. Is we've got to give them an appointment. We got to get them scheduled, signed up, and obviously then the dental office then obviously has to make sure that they show up, they're welcomed in the practice, they're treated well, they're presented treatment, they accept the treatment, and then eventually they leave happy and then refer friends and family. So that's really really important for that journey of the patient to stay optimal at every touch point the patient has with our organization as a dental
Mhm.
organization. On the website, they have to like your website, they have to like your ads, they have to like your landing page, they have to like your videos, they have to like your reviews, and they have to like who they're talking to on the phone. And all these things have to click. Now once they like that, they decide to come in, they have to like how they were welcomed by the reception, right? They have to like how the hygienist and the assistants talk to them, the dentist talk to them, the treatment plan coordinators talk to them. This all encompasses the patient journey. And as long as we respect that at every touch point we have, we're going to get the patient moving forward one step at a time towards treatment, right? And obviously, when treatment happens, dentists get paid, they have revenues and profits. Patients get served because they have the gift of health, and everybody benefits. And so we're really in that player that just we're just one of the players in that patient journey that allows us to optimize it in a way where we want every patient to feel that they're important, their health is important, and we value and we want to make sure that they don't feel any anxiety in any way to come visit a dentist, because that's the number one reason people don't call a dentist. It's anxiety.
Hmm. Yeah, and so you're talking about all the different touch points. I know Patient Prism does the calls. Does it do anything else like from, are you also helping with the like helping with phrasing for the receptionist to use and stuff like that? Or is that more or less on the individual practice?
Well, we with every opportunity that did not schedule an appointment, we actually have a training video that goes along with it. So we have developed a whole library of videos, over 400 of them, that address every aspect of a call in terms of what could, like for example, there's a video on how do you talk to people who are rude, How do you talk to people who are anxious? How do you talk to people who are out of network? How do you talk to implant patients? How do you talk about financing? So any scenario you can imagine that a dental office faces, we have a training video that's only short. It's 2 to 3 minutes long, sometimes 1 minute long, that gets attached to that alert that we send out in 15 minutes, so that people can actually like, all right, well, here's where we messed up. This patient was wanting dental implant. We didn't offer them financing. So let's watch a quick Patient Prism video on how to offer financing to patients who don't have insurance. And boom, there it is. So we're training the team members in real time. We're not like, okay, well, you figure this out on your own. It's not really about, dentistry is also a team sport, like all sports are, for the most part.
Mhm.
And dentistry is a team sport. So you have to get everybody doing the right thing. And we have to get the front office in a position where they are delivering really amazing customer service on the phone, so the patient feels like, man, I've called the right place. It's affordable, it's not gonna hurt me a lot. And we almost have to teach our team members to be empathetic, and really, how do we gain the trust of the patient.
So how long did this take you to really develop? Like, how many phone calls did you have to listen to? How did you get all that data? What was that process like?
Yeah, great question. Actually, we in AI there is something called a ground truth, where you have to feed the machine with good structured data that's completely labeled correct perfectly, and we had to get all these human beings to almost coach a million phone calls uh, manually in order to
Wow.
find the ground truth, so that we could then teach a machine how to do that with you, because machine is not going to know it on its own, right? A human being, and the machine, obviously AI is really good at looking at what was done before and recognizing patterns that maybe even humans missed out, right? I mean, sometimes a human being will say, all right, this happened, but AI will take, okay, well, what are the characteristics of this type of calls that the human being missed, right? And so they'll look at different things that we have no idea. So it's not merely like a keyword identification tool, like, oh, the patient says I'm a new patient, so it identified as a new patient. It's not. It's AI identifies the nuance of the conversation. So if somebody says, by the way, I just moved here, and that could be enough for the AI to figure out that I just moved here means this is a new patient. So there's lots of cool things that go behind the scenes in analyzing
Mm.
conversations to recognize patterns that allow us to quickly recognize who that patient was, what they wanted, what would the value of that opportunity was, and if they're in schedule, what can we do to get them back?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I mean, the whole this is fascinating, and I think AI is like kind of like a buzzword, for a lot of people. So how would you define AI? Like, can you explain that? Like, what's the difference between maybe AI versus, automation versus just computer programming?
Yeah. So computer programming really is just you give a machine a set of instructions in a language that is developed for those instructions in zeros and ones, and the computer performs that very efficiently through a program. Um, the AI really is a body where it still is in the current phase. It's still, AI is not the thing, the AI we think about as the robots on Terminator, or bots doing their own things. It really is data science, right? It's data science taken to a level where the computing power of the computers right now are able to crunch innumerable amount of data, and take all that unstructured data, bring it together into a structure, and make some sense of it, and make predictions out of it. And it does it in a way where it would take a long time for somebody to do it. So the power of computing and the power of data science combines together, and it really is about predicting something, looking at, and right now AI is not about telling a robot to go do this thing, although we're that's happening. But today, as AI as it stands today, is really about prediction. Like, what can we predict based on the vast amounts of data we have that potentially is unstructured, In statistical modeling, you have to have structured data, variables, x variable, y variable, and then and run these models. In AI, you can have all this data that gets pumped into the system, and then the machine, based on what it's learned from similar types of data, makes inferences about the new data and says, this is what I think it is. So an example of this would be like, we have, Apple, uh, Apple Music, for example, right? You have all these genres of music: classical, jazz, rock, pop, hip hop, right? And one of the things that so let's say you like the hip hop genre of music, or let's say you like, and hip hop genre has certain note patterns and certain rhythmic cycles. Sometimes Apple Music will suggest, if and you have a rap music or a hip hop music uh, liking, and sometimes a jazz music piece will come into hip hop, because AI, independent of what a human thought it was, looked at the patterns within the notes and said, "Hey, this looks like hip hop too." And so that is what AI is. AI is really, it looks at data, it looks at what humans have done, but it looks at data independently of humans and says, by the way, we see patterns that are similar across a large data set of potentially unstructured data, and we're going to make sense of it and make a prediction of what is going to happen or what we think it is. And
Okay.
that really, I know it's a complicated way to explain it, but I think if people think about AI as prediction, for
Mm.
now, that's plenty.
Well, and then, just thinking about it, because I've been always fascinated with AI. Even before, like you mentioned Terminator, that was always fascinating. But then even as I became older and learning more about what it actually is, from a business perspective, it becomes really, really fascinating as well. And so, you've got these tech giants utilizing their AI, like Google and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, with their predictions and thinking what you want to, trying to predict what you want to see. And like those are like very robust, super expensive AI programs. I mean, they're investing, untold millions into those all the time. But like, what about, getting started? For instance, what was exciting to me was the idea of a AI, making calls on your behalf, like trying to find prospects or clients or whatever. I don't know how far away we are from that, but like, what's the barrier to entry like in getting involved with AI?
It's very low, actually. The democratization of AI is happening. I mean, um, kind of Elon Musk started that trend with Tesla. What AWS, what Amazon did, what Microsoft and Google did, is they took all the AI they had built, right, for their own selves, and decided to sell it, along with all the open source libraries and everything else.
Mhm.
So what they did was it really allowed developers and businesses to really deploy AI,
Mm.
using some of the models that these guys have worked with, and allowed them to tweak those models along with the working with their models. So AI deployment has become, in certain verticals, in certain use cases, AIs can be deployed very easily, because you've got these organizations that are more interested in monetizing the data than anything else. Amazon makes more money on that side than they're selling everything else. They're more interested in the data and people's behaviors that are really and then they're interested in that, right? So is Google. So they crunch all that data and figure out what to serve uh, your customers in terms of ads, in terms of recommendations. And that's where, and what they're doing is, okay, well, we built all this stuff, let's sell it to everybody. And so Amazon, Google, and Microsoft absolutely head to head in terms of making some of these their AI tools available. And so we use some of them. We built our
Okay,
own.
that's what I was
Uh,
gonna ask.
we partner with anybody that has something that is exciting, and sometimes we'll partner with Microsoft on an element that they've done really well, Amazon with something they've done well, Google with their thing well, and then we'll have our own. And sometimes you take, like for example, Google has built a great engine for transcribing calls. So has IBM. So there's no way you could build that engine on your own, because that's Google, right? So you'd kind of take advantage of certain tools that are developed by folks out there, and then you come up with your own tools to kind of mess with that data, and you come up with a solution that works. But believe it or not, it's much easier than 10 years ago, when these companies did not want to share their tools. Apple still doesn't share; it's still a closed system, and I think eventually they're going to get in trouble for that at some point, where antitrust or whoever it, maybe not antitrust because they're not anti-competitive, but I think the fact that they're a closed system could haunt them in the future. I think that Microsoft and Amazon and Google are literally trying very hard to get at them,
Hmm.
but eventually, because of their closed system, they're able to make a lot of money, and because of the user base. So,
Hmm.
but we'll see that change too. I think the price of AI will come down on many fronts, and I think.
So, obviously we're real estate guys. So in terms of real estate, like how do you see this playing out? Because you've got kind of the school of thought that is saying like, way down the road, you're going to need less real estate than you do now because of things like AI, because of things like virtual appointments and telemedicine and stuff like that. So, do you see these things working in tandem to grow the business, to grow the real estate footprint, or kind of working against each other in the sense that eventually, yes, you will need less square footage and less space?
Well, if you're in a bank, you will definitely need less square footage in the future, right? Because we won't need physical banks. There's
Mhm.
no need to have a physical bank, right? Yeah, there's just no need. Eventually, all branches will close down, uh, but barber shops will stay open, so will dental offices, right? As good as teledentistry, you still cannot treat anything in your mouth without being in the office. And so I don't think real estate has to worry about the dental offices. Yes, there might be some things in orthodontia, for example, you could do it remotely. I think those models
No.
are where you could treat a orthodontic patient primarily using teledentistry. But for the most part, it's still it requires a qualified doctor, surgeon, hygienist to scale your teeth, to put a crown on. So as AI, I think what will help is, um, I think what AI is doing in dentistry is diagnosing, right? If you talk to companies like Pearl and Overjet, and there's companies out there that are doing a great job of analyzing radiographs to detect anomalies that were missed by a human being. Actually, AI is going to improve the adoption and acceptance of treatments. It's going to also assist the doctors in coming up with a standardized diagnosis for things that are happening within the mouth. So, in fact, I think AI is going to improve, is going to increase the number of patients that are coming in into the door using technologies like us. AI is going to improve the number of patients who are going to accept treatment. AI is going to improve the diagnosis that currently occurs at the practice level, and eventually we might get a robot maybe doing some dentistry. I don't know how far that is, but we might get. Right now, when you see da Vinci in surgery, right, you use a robotic arm to kind of do precision work when it comes to blood vessels and stuff like that. But I think we might see that.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah, sorry. Oh,
so I think that's where we feel AI would do. From a real estate perspective, I don't think real estate has to worry about AI kind of taking over any real estate, because we'll still need dental offices, just like we'll need barbers, unless there's a helmet we can wear and pick the haircut and
right.
boom. Who knows if that'll happen one day? But maybe not. But I still like going to my hairstyle and talking to her and talking
Yeah,
about life. We still need that human connection.
yeah.
I always feel there's predominance. One of the things that gets said a lot today is like, oh my God, in the future, nobody's going to talk to each other. And I refuse to believe that.
No.
Everybody's going to text each other all the time, and everybody's going to chat everywhere. I think that the
Well,
desire for human beings to connect
yeah,
is important.
I mean, that was the whole point. That's the whole point of AI, is to enhance our experience as humans. I mean, we created these programs to enhance our experience as humans, and part of the experience that we enjoy is physical contact, is face-to-face contact, is doing things like seeing your barber where she rubs her hands through your hair with like a massage before you, like, while, you know what I mean, while you're getting your hair washed, like all those types of things. And so, I mean, yeah, there's really like, as long as we maintain control, like it's not gonna run rampant where we just stop doing things that we like all of a sudden. Like we select these things. Like the only argument I could see is like you create a worst case dystopic scenario where, yeah, the AI, you know, determines the human species as a threat. They take over all the robots. They come in and they try and wipe us out. Like, yeah, that's a scary situation. But you know, I don't think it's
Yeah.
realistic for
I
at
think
least
we're far
not in my
ways away.
lifetime.
We're,
Yeah,
we're we're far ways away from that.
yeah,
Where the idea is called singularity, is that when the human brain and the AI brain is kind of the same, and then all of a sudden on top of that it starts becoming smarter.
yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure out when that's going to be, but I think we're far ways away. But I could be wrong. I don't think we have to worry about
I think,
Terminators.
I mean, you know, my personal opinion, it is something we should worry about, but there are enough people worrying about it that are in that field that I think will successfully be able to set up safeguards. You know, if I had to guess, so far, we've done a great job, you know what I mean, of addressing a lot of these problems. So
Well,
I,
here's the thing, right? As the United States, we will do the responsible thing,
yeah,
but I'm not sure there's countries out there in the world that will employ the
that's
same
true.
level of.
Now you're scaring me when I think about AI getting into the hands of the Chinese and the Russians. Like,
Well, but the Chinese are very ahead of us in
yeah,
many
that's
things.
true. That's true.
The
They
Chinese
might, yeah, they
are
might use
very
it
ahead
for,
in terms of AI. The amount of investment the Chinese government has made, and unfortunately or fortunately, communism is the worst form of government. It's the most efficient form of government, which
yeah,
means the president decides this is what's
everything.
happening, and it happens, right? And so they have been very efficient in deploying AI in ways that is way more innovative than what we've done in this space.
Hmm,
So
hmm.
I'm hoping we continue as a nation to invest in our education and our kids in our computer science programs to allow continue to allow the next Facebooks and the next Googles of the world to come from here and not come from over there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's something that I feel very passionate about. We've got to
Um,
keep that leadership mantle here.
you know, you look at countries like North Korea that have, like, you know, communist dictatorships, and it's just like, you know,
Yeah.
so bad for everybody. So so far we've been the world superpower and leading in innovation, and so yeah, hopefully,
Yeah.
because you know, it's like the the Chinese, the North Koreans. Well, they're pretty different, but like a lot of those people don't really get to participate in the upside that they create for themselves. You know, so
Oh,
um
sure.
but they still have amazing results. I mean, like amazing results, even though they are run by like communist governments. And
Yeah.
so it's, you know, it's scary, right? But I guess
I mean, I think hopefully there is a good way. I mean, I believe in the human civilization, and hopefully we don't kill
yeah,
ourselves, kill each other. But there's a lot to learn from others as well. I think there's a lot to learn from what China is doing, and we need to be taking what they're doing well instead of saying, "Oh my God, they're stealing all our stuff." At some point, their innovation engine is gonna outpace ours, and
mm,
we have to really worry about that, in my view. In
mm.
my and they're gonna do it legitimately, not just by stealing our stuff.
Yeah, well, we could talk about this forever, but real quick before we finish, I want to talk about the hedge fund. I know you have been involved in hedge funds and starting hedge funds, so talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, uh, I have to worry about what I say in terms of we don't market our hedge funds, but we
Mm,
we wanted to create a mechanism where we could really figure out a way to mitigate downside risk, and it's a quantitative model that looks at algorithmically the movements of indexes, and we've come up with effective hedges to kind of mathematical hedges to kind of protect the downside. We have $100 invested in something, it goes to $50. You have to make 100% return on investment in order to just get back to zero. So the ups and downs in the market, although we said, oh my God, the market's returned 10% over the last 10 years, it's not been straight up. It's been ups and downs. So just because the market did 10% over the last 10 years, as long as you're invested from day one, you may have done that, but people don't do that, right? And so minimizing volatility of your portfolio can add over a long period of time can do wonders to your wealth building activities. And not really allowed to talk about what the fund does because
Yeah.
we've got regulations in terms of what we do. But the basic premise is to minimizing the standard deviation or the volatility of your portfolio, so that you take advantage of the up movements, but when things go down, you want to have enough things to prevent you have a downside protection. Because in theory, if you can protect the downside and participate, maybe not 100% of the upside, but 60-70% of the upside, then you are going to have build wealth at a more predictable way than everybody else.
Mm.
uh, so those were the foundational principles of why we got into the business. And we're enjoying doing that. It's really about risk management and making sure that right now, right, everybody's making money in the stock market. Everybody's making money in the stock market.
And a
Uh,
crazy bull market.
we are in that, right? And history has shown us that that never continues in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So obviously, and so you want to be prepared for that. And one of the things I used to tell as a CPA to my clients for many years is you've got to really worry about return of your capital before you worry about return on your capital. I mean, you have to worry about, okay, well, here's my $100. I'm like, okay, well, I got to figure out how to make that $100 be 100, and then worry about the growth. And sometimes it's the mentality, right? Oh my God, everybody wants to, when things are going up, everybody wants to buy things.
Everybody's got
Uh,
FOMO.
yeah, that's right. That's right. And the famous Warren Buffett principle is like, be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. Really applies in many aspects, right? Today, how do you buy things that are super high? Right? How do you buy them? You want to be a net seller of everything today. You want to be a net seller of stocks. You want to be a net seller of real estate. Unless you have I mean, obviously, if you're building a dental office, doesn't really matter. You're going to be in
Yeah.
that dental office 15, 20 years. So who cares, right? But the speculators have come out now, right? Everybody is speculating on everything. There's people want to flip real estate. People want to flip Bitcoin and stuff. I mean, that's another wild card where things go. It's 30,000 one day, 60,000 another day. I'm like, really? Like, how do you? There's a lot of people who are getting excited about, getting greedy about it. And
Well, yeah. So I agree with what you're saying. Like, yeah, it's got to come up, and there will be corrections. And another quote Warren Buffett had is, if you're not prepared to lose 50% of your investment, you shouldn't be in the stock market. So you got to have like a really strong stomach. But what I will say is that it seems as though recently there's been a lot more people who are pessimistic and contrary and bearish, for a long time. And so, like, when I think about what the general atmosphere, economic environment is like right now, there's a versus, like, let's just say, 2001, 2001. It was a little bit before my time, but just, hearing about it, reading about it, seems like everybody was very much, hey,
right,
like, it's going to keep going up. It'll keep going up and up and up. You got nothing to worry about. And so obviously you had a massive crash, right? But since 2008, really, as soon as we started to kind of climb back up, I've heard nonstop people saying, oh, it's, can't go up like this. It can't go up like this. It can't go up. And it's essentially since, like, I think we hit the bottom of the market in 2009, the bottom of the stock market. And for the last, 11 years, people have been saying, oh, it can't continue to go up. It can't continue to go up. But some of the things that, well, my personal opinion is that just because it goes up, it doesn't mean it comes down. Now, historically, it has done that, but there's got to be a reason for it. And so we've had different reasons, and it's always a black swan, right? Like, it's always like you're taking into account all the data that you have historically, and then something new comes. Like COVID is a great example. A housing crisis is a great example. All those things. It's always something that is totally new and novel that takes you out. And so it's like, it's hard to predict, like even right now, but there's usually some form of indicators. And so it's like right now, if you had been saying, since 2009, oh, it's like, the economy is too bad, we can't be getting back in. And I remember in March of last year, everybody, or a lot of people were saying, oh, it's a dead cat bounce. It's not, what I mean? You can't make money. But it's like, I feel like they fail to maybe make a whole broader market viewpoint of everything that's going on in terms of interest rates and, like what the Fed is doing, and the savings rate and unemployment. Like it's a really complicated picture, as well as the fact that, we're printing money continually. So the economy is growing, and that money a lot of times ends up in the market. So it's like, it is going to, that money has to go somewhere, and it is forcing assets up, like houses and real estate. So, yeah,
It is truly, truly amazing. I mean, what you say is, I mean, the problem is that a lot of people who make investment decisions are not data-driven decisions. They're just based on emotion, and a lot of the purchases people make about the stock market, about investing anywhere is purely based on emotion. And um, who really, and sometimes it's hard, right? The best people in the world will fail at predicting whatever that's supposed to happen. So, in my view, as long as you have a long-term horizon on anything that you're doing, and you believe and you understand what you're doing, it should be fine. Real estate's always seemed to be a good place for people to
mhm.
put money in, especially if they have a long enough investment horizon. But I worry about the people who are speculators, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it truly is driven by emotion and the hype, and those are the sometimes that kind of leads to a lot of unintended consequences. But yeah, I think, I mean, 2021, I'd be, if somebody said, what are you buying today? I'm like, I'm trying to think about what should I sell. Right? What should I be selling today is the question I'm asking myself. This is not a financial advice by any means. I'm not intended to give anybody any financial advice, but if somebody asks me, what are you buying? No, I'm trying to think about what can I sell.
So
I'm putting
are you comfortable holding your stuff in cash right now, despite the kind of, higher than average inflationary environment? Because it just seems like with the inflation that we have and the money printing that we have, it seems like your cash is going to be worth less and less and less and less.
right. And thankfully, I put all my savings in my own fund, so we manage
Okay.
it a little bit better
So
than
you're not just in cash, you're getting a return.
correct, correct, correct.
Okay.
And but at the same time, it's not appropriate for everybody to be, some in the absence, another Warren Buffett quote, in the absence of anything good, cash is the best alternative. But anyway, you know, investments is another topic that I know you're an expert in real estate, and I'm sure that people are coming from all walks of life to seek your help in what can we buy right now, and you've got a great niche in dentistry, which is phenomenal. I mean, that's I really think is the place to be in the next 5 to 10 years, where it's growing so rapidly. There's so much opportunity to help people in dentistry that I feel truly blessed to be part of this industry, which genuinely helps people, puts them in a position of good health, and I think we've got a long way to go to get more patients in the mix, and I think our industry, dentistry, I think will continue to flourish over the
Mhm.
next decade.
Yeah.
Um, so that excites me a lot, and so I really appreciate the work everybody in this industry does to make it better.
Yeah.
Uh, we do it from our part. You guys do it from your part. In terms of and that's going to be, I think, capacity for dental offices is going to be a big challenge, and I'm excited that you guys are helping DSOs and dental practices across the country really solve their capacity needs. That
Mhm.
really we need more offices. We actually need. Thinking back to your question earlier, from when you said, "Hey, will real estate be affected by technology?" In my view, I think we're going to need more real estate for dental over the next 10 years than ever before, and which is a great place to be.
That's great. Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah. And some things that work into that is just the fact that we've had slow development, like real estate development, both residential and commercial. I mean, really, they're saying there's a housing shortage, and so I think that's what caused the prices to be so crazy.
Right.
So I think that's all that's going to happen. A lot of people they're taking a break from building things right now because the costs of supplies were so high, and so that's also not going to help this shortage, and even and in commercial too. So yeah, you look at something like dentistry, like a lot of times we find ourselves fighting other users for spaces,
Right.
because there's a demand for it, and it's not even always other dentists. Sometimes it's other just different businesses as well. So it's like when you have vacancy, they're getting eaten up pretty quickly. And yeah, there's a demand for creating more buildings, creating more space, and like everything, we had a shortage of it. Then on top of that, the supply chain shut everything down. And so I think it's
Right.
just going to take a while to really normalize before, like, for everything to shake out before we can really see where the cookie crumbles. But in the meantime, there's, like you said, there's great opportunity, and I think we're in a great industry. And so I'm really looking forward to the future and how we can help people and how we can, and buy a lot of the DSOs, we can help them by buying their real estate, and other people, like, they just need help finding individual locations, and that's hard if you've never done that before. So you need helps to have some optics. So we always recommend, hey, if you don't use us to find a location, like, use somebody who's an expert in dental, right? Like, use somebody who can help you find a location who has done at least 10 deals, like, at least, because you don't want to sell yourself short on that. You don't want to get a B grade player and find the wrong location.
You don't know what you don't know. And I'm a big fan of engaging the right experts in helping me with everything, including real estate. Because I don't know enough. I mean, if you don't spend 10,000 hours doing something, you're just not going to be good at it.
Yeah.
And that's the Gladwell rule. But it really is. It matters, and that's why hire experts. Don't try things at home. Don't try to pull your teeth at home. Don't try to sign a real estate deal on your own without knowing what you don't know. I mean, it's really is foundational. But no, I really appreciate this conversation with you. It's
Yeah.
I'm excited to um, uh, you know finally meet you in person, hopefully in the next couple of months,
Yeah.
and really excited about how to learn more about how you're solving the real estate needs for the dental industry, which is absolutely the most urgent need for today, among other things like finding doctors and hygienists and new patients.
Yeah.
We
Lots
need
of lots of issues for sure to work through, but lots of opportunity, like you said.
perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's great. What's the best way, for people to get in touch or find out more about Patient Prism or
Well,
anything like that?
yeah, I think we'd love for people to go to www.patientprism.com. We've got a robust website, tons of case studies, articles, podcasts. We've done a lot of work in the past. If you're a dental practice, if you're in the growth mode where you're attracting new patients, you're spending money on advertising and marketing to drive new patients in, and you're growing, most DSOs are in that category anyway. But even if you're a single office that is in that growth mode that needs new patients, uh, look at us, get a demo, look at what we do. Um, and if we're the right fit for you, we'll let you know. If we're not the right fit for you, we'll let you know that as well, because we want to make sure that we're adding value, and it's a win-win partnership. So yeah,
Yeah.
patientprism.com, schedule a demo, and see for yourself what we can do.
All right. Well, we'll do. I wrote down that website and I'll put that in the show notes. So thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.